Assalamualaikum. We are going to explain on the topic of finance for small and medium-sized entities, which known as SME. In this video, we cover the finance related of SME, including the financing needs, financing problems, measure to ease the financing problems, sources of financing, and financial impact of different sources of finance on SMEs. Firstly, let me briefly introduce a few things about SME. According to the National SME Development Council, in Malaysia, as long as the company meets the principles of the annual sales turnover and number of employees, it should be categorized as micro-enterprise, small or medium-sized enterprise. These standards apply to all sectors of manufacturing, services, and other sectors. For the manufacturing sector, SMEs are defined as firms with sales turnover not exceeding 50 million ringgit or number of full-time employees not exceeding 200. For the services and other sectors, SMEs are defined as firm with sales turnover not exceeding 20 million ringgit or number of full-time employees not exceeding 75. All SMEs must be entities registered with either three: Companies Commission of Malaysia, respective authorities or district offices in Sabah and Sarawak, or respective statutory bodies for professional service providers. SMEs play a vital role in the development of the Malaysian government's economic growth. SMEs are creating new jobs, which help in economic growth and development in both industrialized and developing countries. Therefore, financing is necessary to help them to set up and expand their operations, develop new products, and invest in new staff or production facilities. However, in Malaysia, SMEs generally face difficulties in obtaining finance with lack of collateral and insufficient documents in order to support loan application as the source of finance. When SMEs run into financing problems, they find it much harder to obtain financing from banks, capital markets, or other suppliers of credit compared to larger businesses because they are left with limited financing choice.
Financial need for small medium enterprise SME. There are four of it: bank loan, cash in hand, funds, and credit card. First is bank loan. SME used to purchase non-current asset or other things that need the big amount of money. There are two types of loan: short-term and long-term loan. SME usually use traditional loan, that is simple loan. Second is cash in hand. Help SME to get supplier and to get loan when necessity. SME have higher liquidity when more cash. SME can easily pay to supplier on time. Third is fund. SME use it as capital to continue the business. SME can get from government or private institute. SME fund is in the credit, venture capital, donation, and other. Funds have two types: short-term and long-term. Fourth is credit card. Can help SME to pay the expenses and the purchases of assets. SME must pay it in the certain period. SME also must pay the interest that is for the charge when use credit card.
SME are playing significant contribution in the development countries. SME also can consider as a backbone of the national economy. Let's move to the number 3, financing problems of SME. We already identified the critical problem of SME, and they are finance, human capital, market, and technology. For this video, we focus on the financial problem for SME. Finance is essential for SME since they use it through the business life cycle to expand the business, to make business better in operation. The global finance crisis have caused the financial institution to be more careful and so complex when it comes to finance the SME, and such a difficult to them to get the finance support. Lender and bank have the right to reject the application. There are some reasons that cause the SME suffer in financial problems, and some of them are: Number 1, the nature of SME. The SME tend to be informal and young, as it relatively such a new business in a particular sector. or operate in unfamiliar sector. From the external user perspective, especially investor, they tend to invest at a large firm rather than SME because of less risk and more liquidity. The meaning of liquidity is the availability of liquid asset to a market or a company. The example of the liquid asset is cash. Number 2, the financial track record. Lender usually take a look of credit history to evaluate the creditworthiness. For SME, the poor financial performance and the poor credit history will lead to the rejection of the SME application because lender and financial institution assume that the owner are not be able to manage the business, even the small business. For example, record of continuous loss. Number 3, lack of information. The business are unable and unwilling to provide information to get the financial support. Other than that, the business are unable to provide the particular or information needed to the public that they are readily available in market. For example, inability to provide the information about the repayment capacity, bank statement, and income tax statement. Number 4, insufficient integrity. According to the Central Bank of Malaysia document, this is the one of the key reasons that caused the SME unable to get the financial support from the financial institution. The misappropriation of the company's fund for personal use and misrepresentation of credit exposures and financial information. Number 5, the lack of collateral. SME are often not enough asset for collateral and it is become major challenging because they does not have valuable enough asset to collateral. The SME implementing the insufficient of collateral and operation is considered to be at high risk, such a reason why some financial institutions refuse to fund. For example, some of the application has been rejected primarily for the purchase of ICT machine and equipment rather than the research and development.
Okay, next I'm going to explain about measures to ease the financing problem of SMEs. So first one is venture capitalist. What is a venture capitalist? Venture capitalist is a private equity investor that provide capital to companies exhibiting high growth potential in exchange for an equity stake. Most major providers of finance have specialist venture capital funds. They provide capital and often up to 5 years for startups and high growth companies. The second one is government solutions. Governments have adopted a two-pronged response to increasing the attractiveness of SMEs. First one is increasing marketability of shares, and second one is tax incentive for investors. Next, supply chain financing. This simply means seeking credit from suppliers, typically 30 days. This is very helpful to new businesses. Suppliers to new businesses will want some sort of reference, either from a bank or from other suppliers. However, some will be prepared to offer modest credit initially without references, and as trust grows, this can be increased. Last but not least, crowdfunding. This has become increasingly popular in recent years, where SMEs take advantage of the internet to reach many individuals who individually couldn't provide sufficient funding as a whole, but as together. Companies show their products, their business plans, and latest financial online, and potential small investors can then decide whether to invest or not.
Then we look at sources of financing for SMEs. There is 5 sources, which is own capitals or savings. Second is family and friends. Third is bank finance. Fourth is crowdfunding. And fifth is business angels. Number 1 and the best funding option for a small company is its own money or savings. When a business needs capital, an entrepreneur can tap into his personal asset like stock, mutual fund, real estate or jewelry to raise money at any stage of business. Either he can sell the asset to raise money or take out any loan or any asset. Entrepreneur can spend this sort of personal money in their business as equity capital. Parents, sibling, extended relative or friend with excess cash may be willing to lend some of their money to fund your company.
They may lend the money in the form of a loan to the company or may be able to take an equity interest in the business. This can be quicker and cheaper to arrange compared with a standard bank loan. The interest and repayment terms may be more flexible than a bank loan. However, borrowing in this way can add to the stress faced by the entrepreneur, particularly if the business gets into difficulties. The third one is bank finance. Banks may be able to provide some form of overdraft and may be willing to lend on a long-term basis, where such loan may be held on a large asset including land and houses. Nonetheless, it is much more difficult for SMEs to collect medium-term funding to support projects, since banks are traditionally rather conservative. It is understandable as the loss of one default loan requires a lot of decent loans to restore the deficit. Therefore, often small and medium-sized business end up investing medium-term and even longer-term investment with short-term debt such as overdraft. Banks have a special department which provide loans to small businesses. In order to secure a loan from a bank, business must apply for minimum requirement from the bank. Growing bank has its own requirement for earning capacity, annual turnover, credit ratings, and so on. Banks offer many forms of loans such as working capital loans, terms loans, or loans against properties. Company may choose loan form according to their requirement. Next is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a relatively new method when we consider sources of finance. It is a way of collecting funds by a large number of individuals and investing a limited sum of money. A crowdfunding feature is that it helps people to look for and participate in ideas and ventures that they have in interest or believe in. Therefore, often such creditors are able to take greater chances and expect smaller return that would be normal. The last one is business angel. A company angel is a wealthy person who are willing to risk investing in a small and medium-sized enterprise. One drawback is that these people are rare and most often very selective about what they are willing to invest in. They can become very useful to the SME if a business angel is involved because they would always have a great business acumen themselves and are likely to have many valuable contacts. Next, we will talk about the financial impact of different sources of finance on SMEs, which is the pros and cons. Next is for the bank finance. Loans are given on payment of installment and interest, and the regulation or interest rates differ depending on the form of loan issued and the term and condition of the borrower. There are many advantages by taking bank finance, such as personal loans are simple and fast to access. This is due to numerous platforms that allow personal loans to be made quickly. Besides, all profit and return achieved through a loan of any kind solely belong to the business. In the event of business collapse, entrepreneur may liquidate the company to pay back part of or all of the loan. There is also a disadvantages in taking the bank finance, which is your business need to pay more money by taking the loans. This is because all loans incur interest and the interest can really add up quickly. Last one is business angels. Companies are given insight and a network of industry players by teaming up with experienced angels. The presence of angels is also encouraging participation from others within their network. Their investment, credential, and history allow investors to hijack this experience with a shared interest for the benefit of their own portfolio. By using business angels as sources, there are also disadvantages. It is not a charitable investment on their behalf as any action needs a return, and they are also in a negotiating and institutional role to exert control and demand on entrepreneurs. Make sure you are well educated about the funding process and the need for this form of investment, and be mindful that angel investors are not created equally.